Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to HG Radio, everything beauty, cancer, and inspiration. Here is your co-founder and host, Kim Becker.
Hello, gorgeous. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and this is Hello, Gorgeous, everything beauty, cancer, and inspiration on Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Our guest today is Mary Latham. Mary has been on the road since October of 2016, compiling stories of human kindness in all 50 states. She calls her mission More Good. And at the end result of her trip will be a book full of stories of acts of human kindness, hope, and inspiration that will be put into hospital waiting rooms. She stays with strangers to fund her trip, and she has been in 150 homes to date. She has driven over 41,500 miles in her mother's old car as a personal piece of the mission since her mother inspired her to look for the good before she died of cancer in 2013. Mary has been searching for it ever since and is currently headed to her 49th state, Hawaii, with only New York left to hit. Hi, Mary, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited, and I am honored to say that when you came through Indiana, I actually got to meet you. And I was so grateful that Aaliyah brought us together and that we were able to meet you in person and hear more of your story, which is why I was so glad that we were able to connect and that you get to share your story with our listeners.
Yes, no, that was awesome, and Aaliyah was amazing. It's so helpful when you meet people that are such good connectors along the road.
No kidding. So Before we get into the questions and the mission, tell our listeners about your mom.
So my mom was the best, obviously a little biased, but she was kind of one of those people that you never really knew she was sick. She was just always smiling. She was always staying positive. She was always doing kind of smaller acts of kindness that a lot of us didn't even know that she was doing half the time, that we found out after she passed away. But she was just kind of always doing little acts of radiating kindness and had such a positive attitude. And she passed away a little over 6 years ago now from breast cancer.
And then, so I'm curious about that too. I don't know that we talked about that when you were here. So did she find the lump herself, or was it found through a mammogram for her diagnosis?
Yes, she found it, and then she was clear for 10 years. So I was 11 years old when she was originally diagnosed. So when they told us the news, I thought she was going to die because I didn't understand cancer, and it was just a really scary word for me. And so when she beat it, it was really exciting. She kind of battled out every little thing that can go wrong in between it coming back, but she was just always just going and going and going. And then when it returned, it had just kind of gone everywhere. And she had been getting surgery to have some fluid removed from around her heart, and her heart stopped. So it was more so that surgery that kind of was the ending. And that was kind of why I wanted to put something positive in these hospital waiting rooms, just because growing up with a mom that was sick a lot, I spent a lot of time in hospitals, and especially that last week where it just felt so hopeless, and there were other people in that waiting room that were losing children, and it was just such a depressing, dark place, and there was nothing in there, not even a trashy magazine to know what color Kim Kardashian's painting her nail color. So I just felt like we could really use something in these rooms.
That's right. Well, and what I love, I mean, when you were here and you and I had an opportunity to talk, and I was glad that you're thinking this way, but actually out of this whole mission, which we'll talk about in a minute, you'll actually have 2 books that'll come out of this. It's not only the people that you meet, but you're going to write a book about your journey that you've taken for these past several years, correct?
Yes.
I
definitely, I realized pretty quick it was 2 books.
Right. It has to be, because of what you've done. I mean, you are a true, you're a picture of human spirit. Just to be able to take off and do what you've done, I think is absolutely amazing. So let's talk about that. So how did this whole More Good start and the journey that you've taken?
So it was obviously inspired by my optimistic mother, but I had been working at a law firm around the time that she had become sick again. And I was working there just as a job to have health insurance and stability. I went to school for education. I wanted to be a teacher. I did graphic design because I liked doing photography, but that wasn't a major. I was kind of bouncing all over the place. And I wanted to do wedding photography, but doing that in New York alone was not going to have me living anywhere besides a dumpster. So
Right.
I had a couple other jobs lined up, and one of them was at a law firm where I was sitting the morning of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting.
Oh,
And I had just gotten into work. I had to babysit that night right when I got out of work for a 6-year-old. And so I was very kid oriented. I love children. I had a couple different babysitting jobs at the time, and I just remember being very freaked out. And I mean, I think we all were. It was a horrific thing. But growing up without television shielded me a lot of the kind of worldly tragedies going on. And so I just remember being really, really scared. And I was sitting there obsessing over the news like we do. And my coworker walked by with a coffee from Starbucks. And, he was like, oh, you should have come today because we would usually go together once a week. And I said, yeah, I couldn't afford it this week. And he said, no, it was free. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, there was a guy in earlier buying gift cards because it was right before Christmas. So he was getting them for his employees. And he randomly just got $100 gift card and told the lady to run it out on all the people behind him.
Oh, wow.
And it was just such a cool thing, like you hear those stories, but I had never directly been impacted.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I got the coffee, but, my friend, he had just turned 30 that year. He was going through a divorce. His mom had passed from cancer that year. Like there was just so much going on in his personal life. And he, was around the holidays and he was a really happy person. He had not really been happy in a while. And he was glowing about this free $4 coffee from a stranger. And it was a really cool thing. And so I called my mom when he left, and I would call her every morning to check in on her and see how she was feeling. And I told her the little story. And then I quickly switched over to telling her about the shooting because we grew up in a home with no TV. So that was the home she was in. And she didn't know about it. And I just kept going on and telling her all the details. And I was like, how is there so much bad out there? I mean, everything is horrible and the world is going down and it's just so scary. And she said, Mary, gotta focus on that coffee story you just told me. There's always going to be tragedies and horrible things that will inevitably happen in our lives and in the world, but there'll always be more good out there if you look for it. And so then it was probably a few weeks later that she had her surgery and passed away. And so that conversation kind of always stuck with me. There was a couple little things in between there, but we'd have to talk for 5 hours on the phone. But it was it kind of led up to this realization that conversation in that moment before she passed from her cancer was just so huge for me. And had it been a random moment in my life, maybe I would have overlooked it. But because of what was going on, it made me really appreciate her words, and just they've kind of guided me ever since I've lost her.
Wow. And so you decided to just in 2016, just literally get in the car and go across the United States and find more good. That's that was put on your heart.
Yeah. I guess what happened at first was that I had started a project with a friend where I just wanted to highlight these stories to get them out more. I mean, people were on Facebook a lot, but it was end of 2012 going into 2013. And it was kind of that time where Facebook was switching over to this negative place. Like a lot of people ranting about this and that. And it just felt very, very negative. And so I had to be on there all the time for my wedding photography. I was using it as a free marketing tool and posting photos of weddings and then getting jobs so it was helpful to me, but I also didn't want to be on there because there was just so many complainers. And so I thought, well, I'll put my positive stuff out there and that's how I'll get them. So I started putting these stories out, and it was pretty quick that it lost momentum, just because like anything, we start something, it's going really well, and then keeping it going is the hardest part. Yes. And so I think that instead of getting discouraged and feeling that the project was dying, and it was a project in honor of her and she had died, and just getting really negative, I thought, well, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to find the stories myself. And I kind of started making a plan. And I'm still planning day by day over here before our last 2 states. It's like really a day by day planning thing, just because it's an organization of one and I'm trying to figure everything out on my own. So I just figured I'm just going to get in the car and go. And I did.
Wow. And so what does a typical day, like when you talk about your day of planning, like what does that look like?
You know, there's consistency, and typical are just not words that I remember in the last 3 years, just because every single day is different. You know,
Sure.
sometimes you get to a home where they are not very linked into their community. And to be honest, I thought that would be the most helpful part. I mean, the people that I stay with is how I can support myself financially and emotionally. I mean, they're giving you a bed, they're giving you breakfast. They're, you know, in a home, a shelter that's safe. So that's helpful. And then also just the emotional stability of knowing, you know, I'm just one person alone in the middle of all these different places in the country where I've never been. So now I have a little piece of family there. But a lot of the time I thought I'd get there and they would give me connections to their community and help find stories. And I mean, 75% of the time it's been I get to these places and I go out and I dig up the stories and I bring them home and tell them about them. And then maybe they get involved or start volunteering at this place or this or that.
Wow.
But it's been much more, you know, boots on the ground, digging up work, which I think is such a testament to the fact of why we feel so depressed and so sad and so scared in our country right now, is because we don't even know what's going on in our backyards. There's
That's right.
so much stuff going on. And, you know, I talk about different nonprofits or groups that I meet along the way to other people from the area. And they're like, I've never even heard of that. And like, here's these women that are working night after night tirelessly in their garages to set up these nonprofits and do all this amazing work in their community. And the people in their area don't even know about it. So
Right.
I've gotten very protective of like all of these people that are working so hard for the good, because there's other people out there that are just like, oh, everything's horrible and everyone's a bad person. And it's like, you don't even know all these people, like, you know, and so it's been kind of uncovering a lot of the good too now.
That's awesome. So how do you figure out where to stay?
So usually when I first began my journey, I had put out online a little video and explained why I was starting this, what I wanted it to be. And I said, you know, if anyone has an aunt in Texas or a cousin in California that will let me crash with them as I travel through, like, please let me know. And people started tagging people, friends and relatives, and people would send me emails. And then a lot of the time when I would go into areas, I would try to reach out to like the local paper or some type of media, just so that people knew, like, okay, this person's here. If we have a story, let's share it. Just because, you know, I didn't have any other way to get the exposure in these areas. And so people would reach out from that. So it quickly became, you know, from going from friends of friends of friends or family members to total strangers that there were not a connection in the world. Like Aaliyah I had no connection to. She saw me online somewhere and just sent me an email and sounded super upbeat and positive and wanted to help me as much as she could. And I was like, cool, I'll be there this day at this time. And thanks for offering. And it gives my dad a lot of stress.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt unsafe throughout your travels?
I have not. I have never felt unsafe in any of the homes. I definitely have experiences where you stay more in touch with them, or, you know, some of them really get it. Some of them are just kind of offering you a place to stay.
Yeah.
But I've never felt scared of the people. There's definitely been a large number of challenges, but no, not that. And you know, there was definitely moments on the trip where I had some experiences that made me start being a little bit more wary, just because people were kind of inundating me with like, oh, be careful on this highway, you know, this is going on or this. And I just thought, you know, I got myself pretty worked up in an area that I stayed in that was just, it didn't feel very safe. And then I thought, how hypocritical that I'm telling everyone how there's all these good people out there, and then I'm going to be scared of the people that I'm trying to defend and say that there's good people. I mean, obviously you have to be cautious, but to go in it thinking, oh, well, I don't know, this person might not be safe. It's like, you know, driving is not safe.
That's right.
You know, there's so many things that I'm doing that anything could go wrong. So to kind of feel like the people aren't going to be the help was against what I was trying to prove. And so, yeah, I've been really lucky. I've been in 150 homes and nothing bad to report.
That's awesome. So how do you afford, and besides, you know, you can stay in a home and they can give you a meal, but you still, you know, you've got gas, you've got other meals to cover. So how do you afford all of the other expenses that you've encountered throughout this journey?
So that's been a pretty cool part of it. I did not want to do anything in the beginning of the trip, I think if people had reached out maybe more so, then I would have taken more sponsored opportunities just because I had no idea what I was doing. But I think then because I built it up, so I worked so hard that first year and a half that I thought this is such a cooler thing to be able to say that this mission was quite literally only sponsored on kindness. I mean, the people that have hosted me sometimes, like one time I was in Texas and I had parked and my windows were cracked because it was a billion degrees. And I was collecting a story. And when I got back to my car, someone had slipped an envelope inside with a note that said gas money to your next state. I looked up your website in the back of your car. And it was like $50. And so
wow.
Like one time I talked to a school in Minnesota and like this little ninth grader who I didn't even talk to her class, but she knew what I was doing because she had the teacher who I was talking to her seniors, but she also taught this ninth grader and she had told all of her students about what I was doing. And so the student brought me this bag. I mean, she was like 14. She brings me this bag from Trader Joe's of like dried fruits and snacks and a box of emergency because she knew I was on the road and I might get sick a lot, which I do. And so it was really cool. So I think a lot of those little moments have kind of really been the brunt of the financial aspect, just because every time you get somewhere and you kind of need something, it comes through, like staying with Aaliyah because I had a car issue and then her husband was a mechanic and fixed my car. And so little moments like that, right when you need them throughout this journey, are kind of how I've kept going. And I wear the same outfit every single day. So like 10 more good shirts in my car.
So that worked out well.
I just changed it helps to have a uniform. So it's not like I'm like going shopping in every state or something like that. So yeah, I just have my necessary things and gas and coffee, gas for me. And and then staying with those people is just such a huge help. And then random people, I mean, people just sometimes donate to my GoFundMe or they Venmo me some gas money or this or that. And so, it's kept me being able to stay on the road this long. And I also still work. I'm a wedding photographer and periodically I've flown back to New York. Car's been on the road the whole time, but I have come back and shoot 2 or 3 weddings and then get back on the road for months at a time. So that has sustained my business and my wallet.
That's awesome that you can do that, right? That you've got the flexibility that okay, yep, now I can go back to New York and do that. That's wonderful that you've got that flexibility.
Yeah, photography is awesome because it is a mobile career. And so I know that I could put something on Facebook and say, hey, I'm going to be in Idaho in this town. Does anyone have any connections? Because I need to do a shoot.
Yeah.
And I would get one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I have any time or desire to do that.
No.
But knowing I can is great.
That's right. That's exactly what I said too. For years I was a hairdresser and I said that too. What I love about your story, it's kind of parallel to mine, which is it's faith, right? You don't know how it's going to work out. You just believe that it will. You believe that there'll always be a kind person in the next city that you're going to. You believe that you'll always have the gas money that you need, even though you can't, Martin Luther King always said, you don't need to see the full staircase. You just need to just take the first step. You just need to see the first step. And that's just what you do. You go to the next town having that faith that someone will be there to take care of. And that's kind of what it is with Hello Gorgeous too. You don't know what the next incident, the next journey, even the next day looks like, but you just get up and you come into the office and you know that something good is going to happen, that it's all going to work out. That's all there is to it. And so I admire that in you. And this is such a huge feat that you've taken. Share with me one of your favorite stories from the road so far.
So it's actually a story from the beginning of my trip, but it's really sat with me this entire time. So I feel like it's a testament to how important it was to me. But it was from a woman in Rhode Island, and she had told me that she was working at a bank one day and she was having a really bad day and someone came in to take money out. And so she was getting the money for her. And, it was pretty visible on her face that she had been crying or something. And so the customer said, are you okay, honey? Is there anything I can do for you? You look like you're having a hard time. And the girl was like super embarrassed. She was like, oh no, nothing some M&Ms won't fix when I get out of work later, and like made a weird joke to change the topic. And they kind of laughed and the lady left. And then 30 minutes later, the customer walked back in and slid a bag of M&Ms under her window.
Oh.
And it was just such a cool thing. I mean, she never forgot it. And she told her kids and her grandkids, and, you know, it had happened 30 years ago. She never forgot. And she was telling me this story 30 years later. And it just made me realize, I mean, there are so many incredibly huge stories out there. I mean, people who are literally giving pieces of their body part to total strangers, and just like all these amazing things. But stories like that, it's that reminder for all of us that we are all capable of kindness and these little acts. And a bag of M&Ms. I mean, it changed that woman's life, and it was just a bag of M&Ms. So we can all do that kind of stuff, and we should be doing it more.
That's right. I agree. So you've gotten a little notoriety from this. So I saw you were on Good Morning America. Is that correct?
The Today Show.
The Today Show, yes. And you were on Kelly Clarkson's new show, correct, as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And how was that? What kind of experience was that? Because I know the cool thing, what made me smile when I saw that you were on the Today Show and on with Kelly Clarkson was that was not your goal. Like, you are not doing this so that you can be famous or that you can, you know, do anything except find the good and spotlight other people, which I thought was so cool that you were spotlighted. So share with me a little bit about that experience.
Well, so actually with the Kelly one, it was cool because it kind of goes based on what you just said. I mean, I was able to spotlight, coincidentally with the name, another woman named Kelly. Because they had me pick a story that really impacted me. And so to give her that experience and that credit that she so needed and deserved for what she does was really, really awesome. And, you know, that woman that went on with me, her son had died of cancer. And she started something called Nick's Wish in his honor, because he always told her how there were kids out there that weren't getting Make-A-Wishes that had turned 18 already, because he had met a specific boy in the hospital who didn't get a wish. And he kept saying, we have to do something about this. We have to do something about this. I mean, here's this 18-year-old boy dying of cancer, focusing on these other kids that aren't getting wishes, because he got a wish. And so after he passed away, it kept nagging at her. And so she got that boy who we always talked about a wish, and it helped her so much that she wanted to keep helping more people. And so she has given 130 wishes away now. And they're like going to Hawaii. It's like $6,000 wishes for these families.
Wow.
And she's just like an absolute angel. And so when we went there, I mean, it was a really cool experience. It was really cool to look like a woman again, because when you live in a car, you start to feel like a dog, and your hair, your makeup on. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so pretty right now. So that was really cool. But besides all that, you know, we left that experience, which just was like a blur it all went really quick. And we got to have a little appetizer and a drink together before heading to the airport. And so that was the only time we got to spend together. And we hadn't seen each other in like a year since I had met her in Chicago. And so we were sitting and we got our cocktail, and we were like, oh gosh, like that was so stressful. We're like having our cocktail. And she just kind of looked at me and said, you know, I feel like you gave me a wish. Like that was my wish with Nick. And like, I got my own wish to do this. And like, oh my God, I was just like cry thinking about it now, but just being able to have that, it was really cool. But yeah, the Today Show was definitely just spotlighting me. And so that always feels weird, because again, there are people that are always like, oh, she's just doing that for this. Yeah. It's like, no, like, not at all. But you know, not everyone's going to understand everyone's mission.
That's right.
But when I walked in into that room that you sit on the couch, the back, like the wall, is so much bigger than it actually looks on TV. And so when I first walked in, the whole wall behind the couch was covered in photos of my journey. And the people I had met, actually, there was a picture with Aaliyah's husband when he fixed my car. Yeah. And to see all those pictures in black and white behind the couch, like that got me. I was like, oh God, like all of a sudden I thought I was going to like break down, because it was just like, wow, like I really did it.
That's right.
Like,
look what I've done.
And I'm so tired. And
that's right.
Cool.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time. So tell our listeners, where can they find more about you and More Good?
So the website is moregoodtoday.com. And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's More Good Today.
Awesome.
And the email is also moregoodtoday@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for joining us today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time out to share your journey with me. If you have any questions or comments or would like to know more about the guests of our show, or for more information about Hello Gorgeous, feel free to contact me at kbecker@hellogorgeous.org or visit our website at www.hellogorgeous.org. And we invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and download our mobile app. Thank you for joining me today on Hello Gorgeous, Everything Beauty, Cancer, and Inspiration. I'm your host, Kim Becker. And until next time, stay gorgeous.